Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. What is it like to bet $4.6 million on the Super Bowl? The gambler who did it joins us next. Plus, police take aim at truckers protesting the vaccine mandate. Why the usual pro-labor, pro-worker voices have abandoned some of the hardest working among us. But first, the opening ceremonies to the Olympics kick off in just a few minutes. They actually happened hours ago, but NBC is getting ready for their big primetime telecast from communist China. We're glad you're joining us instead. Featured among it will be ads from various American companies and Olympic sponsors highlighting the games, the sportsmanship, the competition. In a sick and twisted world, some of the sponsors are also companies accused of using Chinese forced labor. To be clear, China has millions of ethnic, racial, and religious minorities in concentration forced labor camps. Here are some of them on the left. That is the Uyghurs with their heads shaved, shackled, and lined up for a train ride to the camps. On the right is the Nazis doing the very same thing. It is difficult to tell the difference between the two pictures and the two atrocities that are going on. China is perpetuating the greatest genocide since World War II. This is not up for discussion. That is a fact. The 2022 Beijing Olympics may very well and should be remembered much like the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Here's a list of just some of the companies and brands we use every day that are almost certainly made using forced labor. This is the time that most channels deliver a major indictment of corporate greed. They are putting profits ahead of principle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We shouldn't be surprised. That's exactly what corporations do. Nike, with their Colin Kaepernick ad, believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything. Corporations are very clear. They believe in profits. That's their job. The board of directors works for the shareholders and the CEO works for the board. They have a singular responsibility to maximize profits within the bounds of the law. It is a fiduciary duty to do so. It's exactly why none of the CEOs of any of these companies say anything, why they do business with China. They remember Intel, for example. The chip manufacturer sent a letter saying their products were free of forced labor and had to apologize for insulting the Chinese. The NBA bowed to the communist and groveled after the Houston Rockets general manager said Hong Kong should be free. So the NBA then got their games in China back. The list goes on and on. But so far, there have been precisely zero profiles encouraged from American businesses. The China market is too valuable, and China rules by fear. Take Coca-Cola, for example. They are both an Olympic sponsor and allegedly used forced labor, but they make billions from the China market. If their CEO, James Quincy, seen here, dared say anything about China, the stock would tank. He would lose his job, and the board would hire a new CEO willing to do business in China. The company made over $10 billion in the third quarter of last year, driven mostly by the Chinese market. Coke's going to release their fourth quarter earnings this coming week. Stay tuned. So as the Wall Street Journal reports, they are doubling down on advertising their Olympic sponsorships in China and pulling back a little bit in the United States. It's a smart move. Same thing for Apple's Tim Cook. They sell $14.6 billion in China every year. He can't say anything, lest the Chinese ban Apple products or mess up his supply chains. For all of Apple's ads about privacy, profits are number one. Which brings us to the hand-wringing that is occurring right now about why NBC whitewashes the Chinese atrocities. Listen to their coverage.
Remembering that while Western countries may be boycotting these Olympics over human rights issues, China styles itself as a champion of the developing world, and it has plenty of support in countries from Africa to Latin America, where its investments are building up local economies.
Yeah, here's the tweet from Josh Rogan, who shared reporting from NBC on the Uyghur genocide. Quote, Western governments allege a systematic repression of Muslim Uyghurs, is how NBC phrased it. It has to be said that the Chinese government emphatically denies all of this, according to NBC. They say the accusations of genocide are the lie of the century. The Nazis said exactly the same thing. I like Josh, so I'm not picking on him here, but what do you want to bet he wrote that on an iPhone? Even worse if it was a Samsung. They both sponsor, Samsung this is, both sponsors the Olympics and is accused of using slave labor. Complaining about China right now on an iPhone is a little bit like complaining about the Nazis in the 1930s while driving a Mercedes. That said, in today's world, it is near impossible to go through life without using Chinese products every hour of every day. So we must ask ourselves if The CEOs aren't going to do anything because they need to protect their companies and their profits. What would actually scare the Chinese? We have an answer. American celebrities publicly naming and shaming them. Thus, Chinese goods would become less popular with American consumers. How about Kim Kardashian, who regularly highlights the plight of those wrongly convicted of serious crimes in America? Who better to talk about imprisoning millions in Chinese concentration camps? Well, she certainly can't because she just launched her swimwear line in China. How about LeBron James, King James, a.k.a. Mr. Social Justice? Nope. Nike, his sponsor, very likely uses slave labor and sells billions to the China market. There is precisely one NBA athlete who will say anything, Enes Kanter Freedom, Turkish by birth, now American, who dares to say the truth.
When these people, these players, these athletes, these companies, they just call themselves as social justice warriors or organizations or companies. But when it comes to China, they remain silent. And I just wanted to put all their hypocrisy out there to show people what they are all about.
Good for him, but it is not nearly enough. But we know China is scared of such moral courage. The communist leadership in Beijing warned U.S. athletes about the Olympics. Talk about China's atrocities during the Olympics while you're in China, and you will face prosecution under Chinese law. The Speaker of the House said American athletes should listen to the Chinese.
I wish the athletes well. I do not encourage them to speak out against the Chinese government there because I fear for their safety.
Even the big media companies are scared. They are corporations, too. Think about ABC News, owned by Disney. Well, Disney makes billions from Disney Worlds in China, not to mention movies there and merchandise. Just think about if ABC said anything about what's happening to the Uyghurs. NBC obviously is in a pickle. They paid for the Olympics. Trashing the host company doesn't do much for viewership, not to mention the safety of their staff. We at NewsNation are free of such entanglements and are grateful not to be censored by bosses worried about the almighty yuan. But as highlighted above, it's almost impossible to find American businessmen and CEOs willing to discuss the issue. The CEOs of the companies above hate talking about it. They pay their PR people millions of dollars a year to keep these stories out of the press. So we bring in Mitch Rochelle of Macro Trends Advisors, formerly a senior executive of a Fortune 50 company. Mitch, good to see you. We appreciate it. Did I get anything wrong?
No, you nailed it, Leland. I couldn't have said it better myself. The reality is that China was first, maybe 30 years ago, the part of the supply chain where you could get goods and services much cheaper than you can manufacture them in the United States or even in Latin America. But what's happened is, as the Chinese economy has grown because of all that commerce, their middle class grew, and their middle class became a consumer. So it's not just China as the supplier for things that we want to buy in the United States more cheaply, but those customers became very important for the same companies in the United States. And that's the real pickle, because they're on both the supply and the demand side of these businesses.
Is there any profiles in courage among American companies who are standing up on this?
No. And what's really interesting and very disturbing to me, and you and I have talked about this off the air, the reality is corporate America has sort of gone woke, and corporate America has said social justice is important. Corporate America has said that purpose is very important. The Business Roundtable, which are leaders of the biggest companies in the United States, came forth a couple of years ago and wrote a position paper that they published in the Wall Street Journal and said that purpose is important and stakeholders are as important as shareholders. Yet for some reason, they turn a complete blind eye when it comes to the atrocities that are going on in China. In fact, I love the graphic that you put up, but it put a pit in my stomach because I couldn't figure out which was Nazi Germany and which is today in China.
Yeah, no, it actually, I had not seen that graphic. We'll put it up again just so people can take a look. And it shook me for a second. I thought, wait a second, did we put up Nazi Germany twice? And then I realized left side China, right side Nazi Germany. I can't help but feel, because of the way the Chinese react when anybody says anything and how scared they are about American athletes speaking out about what's happening on the left and how similar it is to what's happening on the right. I can't help but think that if American celebrities started talking about it and American consumers then started changing their behaviors even just a little bit, that it would be earth-shattering.
I think so. And, listen, let's just take Amazon or any big online retailer. I don't want to single out Amazon. If they, in a larger font, published where the good is coming from, the country of origin, the way we do with a lot of things, that country of origin is printed in a large font, I think that would begin to change behavior. So, I think, yes, social media influencers and celebrities do, change behavior. But what if we just had some sort of disclosure requirement where you had to say where it came from and consumers had a choice? Do I, buy this charging cable that was manufactured in China for $12, or did I buy this one that was manufactured in Mexico for $18? And maybe people would choose the higher price thing because they feel strongly about what's going on in China.
It's interesting. We did a segment yesterday about an American mask manufacturer that can't get contracts even from the U.S. government because the Chinese continue to undercut them. How much are American businesses that you consult with trying to find a way to bring things back to America to be ready for the time that we may be in a situation we can't get it from China?
I think they've been working on it, and some companies have been doing a better job of that than others. In the apparel industry, many companies have been sourcing in places like Vietnam because they were worried about the intellectual property theft that was going on in China, because that's something, that also goes on. But listen, this pandemic's been going on for 2 years. It's taken 2 years to resource the supply chain. It's very difficult, very costly, very time consuming, and very risky. But I do think that CEOs are mindful of it and trying to find ways to source goods. And to me, North America is a great place to do it. I think we can create pharmaceuticals in Canada, and we can create other products in Latin America. And that may solve some other problems that are going on in those countries.
If any of your CEO clients want to come on and talk about bringing production back to the United States or Latin America, they are more than welcome. Mitch, good conversation as always. And look, I admire you talking about it because it hurts your business sometimes when you speak out on these things. People won't give you contracts. We understand that. So there's a profile and courage there. Good to see you. Have a great weekend.
You too, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. All right, join the conversation. What, if anything, would you give up to send a message to China? It's an important question. You can actually make a difference. Mitch had some ideas. Let us know. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Leland Vittert. All right, live look right now, staying overseas, from Morocco. And this is a live picture right now where a 5-year-old boy is trapped in a 100-foot deep well. The boy has been stuck down this well for 3 days. They put a fiber optic cable down into the well. So you can think about this almost like the Chilean miners. They're down there, they're delivering water and food and then digging from the side of the well in. They had gotten very close to this young man who is down 100 feet. He's been there for 3 days. You can see some of his friends they're interviewing. They gotten very close to him, and they were worried that all of a sudden the well tunnel was going to fall onto the boy. So they've stopped everything, but there's still these pictures. We're going to try to get back to the picture from inside the well and keep you updated. It could be one of the more amazing rescue stories of all time. Coming up, higher prices are taking money out of your pocket. They keep getting higher. What's the one industry where pay increases are actually beating inflation? I'm also a desert about gambling on sports, so this one has me. But if you have ever gambled on sports, you know the thrills and agony that comes with even the smallest bets. Now imagine a $4.5 million bet on one game, $4.5 million. A Houston furniture store owner did just that. He's known as Mattress Mac. He bet $4.5 million on the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Los Angeles Rams in next week's Super Bowl. If it happens, he walks away with $11.7 million. There's a little more to it, though. Part of a promotion for his mattress stores. He promised a full refund for all customers who spend more than $3,000 on certain items if he wins. Joining us now, Mattress Mac-and-Vale himself. Good to see you, sir.
Hi, Leland. How are you?
I'm great. Is this about gambling or is this about a promotion?
It's about promotion. We have a promotion if you buy $3,000 worth of mattresses or reclining furniture. And Cincinnati wins a big game on February 13th. and you get your money back, and customers love the promotion. They're flocking in here all day buying furniture. So it's good for the customers, good for us, and we're pulling for Cincinnati big time.
We are too here. Do you have insurance for this? How much could you lose if Cincinnati wins?
Well, that's why I did the bet yesterday, was so I'd get that $7 million back to pay off the customers who get the free mattress, free furniture. And I may have to buy some more, may have to do some more betting before the Super Bowl happens, on February 13th, because right now the store is flooded with customers. So the promotion is working well, and we got a good hedge. All right. May need to have another one.
All right. So in the next 7 or 8 days, how much are you going to sell, you think?
Probably about $10 to $15 million.
Okay, so you got to do another couple of bets. What's your wife think of this?
She thinks I have a gambling problem. I told her I have a promotion problem. So it's not gambling, it's promotion. It's trying to bring people in the store, give them a reason to come in here and have fun and buy furniture, and then cheer hard on Super Bowl Sunday for the Cincinnati Bengals.
It seems like you win kind of either way in terms of whether or not people buy, because people buy all this furniture, but your track record on betting, I don't know, I want to say leaves a little bit to be desired, but it was a bit of a tough year. You bet on the Astros, the Patriots, and Alabama. None of those have worked out to the tune of almost $20 million?
Well, the Astros was much less than that. It was $3 million to win 36. That was, I bet on them on a futures bet early in the season. That was only $3 million, but I did lose $5 million on Alabama and a couple million on the Patriots. Yes.
All right. So if you lose $5 million watching the game, do you really lose that because of how much you made and all the furniture?
It washes out with the head.
So what's it like? You've got millions of dollars riding on these games. Are you sitting there eating chicken wings and just relaxed, or you kind of have a little bit of a pit in your stomach?
I don't watch football games. Normally I work out during the game because I get too excited watching it. I can't affect it either way. I just look at the final score, and if it's plus, that's great. We really want the Bengals to win because it's good for the customers. So we're big Bengals fans and hoping they win, and the customers get their money back. Be the best thing could happen.
All right, so you're working out. What do? You're on the treadmill. You're lifting weights.
I'm on a treadmill with no television.
You got $4.5 million riding on the game or more, and you're on a treadmill with no TV. All right, I like where it's going. Last question for you: Are you a bettor in the rest of your life? Because if you'd put down the money earlier in the season, you could have gotten 150 to 1 odds on the Bengals going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I should have done that, but I did that with the Astros, and I got a big odds. I did it with the Patriots. I had them at 23 to 1. Patriots didn't make it to the Super Bowl, so it's a matter of being smart on doing those future bets, and I certainly wasn't smart on the Bengals, but I like the Bengals' chances to win the big game and get all those customers free furniture.
All right, so you're in Houston, right? And your store's down there.
I'm in Houston. Yes.
Yeah, people who are watching around the country, can they get in on this deal, or is it just in Houston?
Well, the furniture has to be delivered before the big game next Sunday, so it's difficult to deliver out of town. We have so many deliveries inside. If they live in Texas, we can probably get it to them, but outside of the state, it's impossible to deliver it that quick.
This is great. All right, I want you to make me a promise that on Monday after the big game, you're going to come back and we're going to talk about what happened, all right?
Promises made will be promises kept, Leland. Absolutely.
I love it. Good to see you, sir. Go Bengals.
Go Bengals, and buy furniture, customers. Thank you.
Love it. Have a good workout. All right. The White House says they have an answer to America's crime problem, the serious questions about their approach, and why one district attorney has already abandoned his soft on crime policies.
The Attorney General directed all U.S. attorneys in the United States to prioritize combating gun trafficking across state lines and city boundaries. The Justice Department is sending additional prosecutorial resources to help shut down what's referred to, as you all know, as the iron pipeline.
President Biden says he has an answer for America's crime epidemic, cracking down on guns. This includes a new Justice Department initiative which will focus on the idea of ghost guns that are privately made, lack serial numbers, making them tough to track. According to the DOJ and local police agencies involved, they recovered just 8,700 suspected ghost guns in 2020. It's a blip compared to the total number of guns in the United States. 23 million guns were bought in 2020 alone. Ghost guns are very, very small minority. Bringing Carly Pearson, opinion writer for USA Today. Carly, good to see you. Are guns really the problem, or are bad people with guns the problem?
Good evening. Thanks for having me on. I think that's the wrong question. I think we need to take a hard look at what is going on in the United States of America that is not happening in any other country in the world. And that's our gun violence rates, by anyone's accounts, are astronomical for countries with similar or worse income levels.
So what would be the question if it's not how to prevent that and what the problem is? Well,
the question is, why are we still lying to ourselves? Bad people, good guns. I mean, what are we talking about? We have gun deaths that far supersede other nations with similar development indicators. And pretending
so I'll go with that. The gun. If your hypothesis is that guns are the problem because they're so prevalent, states with the most gun sales in 2020: Wyoming, Montana, Alaska, Alabama, West Virginia, South Dakota, Mississippi, Idaho, Oklahoma, and New Hampshire. None of those are the places that match up with the record homicides around America.
Right. I've written about, for USA Today Opinion, how it's not necessarily guns that are the problem, having guns that are the problem. I used to live in Switzerland, right? Everybody there has a gun. People practically sleep with guns under their pillowcases, so they can because they have militias. They don't actually have a standing army. People go and they get their guns if they're called to form a militia, as we were when the United States was being founded. I mean, that's where the Second and Third Amendments come in, are really talking about standing armies. So guns in and of themselves are not a problem, right? Because in Switzerland, you don't have the same rates of gun violence. I mean, anywhere near. It's like 0.0.
No, it's one of the safest. Look, you walk around Geneva or Zurich in the middle of the night, you can walk around with, cash hanging out of your wallet, and you're not going to get mugged with a gun.
Right. You might get hit on, but you won't get mugged. Exactly. So guns. I mean, to say that to reduce the issue to guns, period, is obviously not correct.
Oh,
right?
So okay. So I know I'm glad you said it, because I agree with you completely. When President Biden,
then we're both agreed.
When President Biden does that, though, and when listen to Kim Fox in Chicago and other places, if Americans agree with you that guns aren't the problem, and they keep saying guns is how to solve crime in America, is that going to be a problem for Democrats, with crime being such a big issue for Americans?
I'm not saying guns aren't a problem either.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is there's a much bigger problem than just guns. I mean, the problem in America is twofold, in my opinion. One, this country is a country that's built on oppressive violence on the backs of Native Americans and on the backs of enslaved people. We have a different history here than they do in Switzerland, for example, with all of their guns. They have kids doing shooting competitions in Switzerland with guns, and they don't have the same problems. The other part of that is America, the United States of America's, again, development indicators compared with these other countries. For example, in the U.S., we spend $500 a year per kid on their education, government-wise.
Okay, if there's all these problems, what's the solutions to whatever question you want to answer?
Well, I mean, I wish I had all the answers. I definitely wouldn't be here in my apartment office right now in my closet. But I think one thing we know that easy access to guns isn't necessarily a good thing. Arming everybody, arming the kindergartners is not going to make America safer. We've seen that. We know that.
I don't know anybody who wants to arm kindergartners. I want to get to this sort of idea, though, in terms of how, especially the Democratic Party, is dealing with this issue of crime. Just in the past couple of hours, and we've covered this a lot, Alvin Bragg, who came into office as the Manhattan DA January 1st and went way soft on crime, talked about there was only a couple of things that he would ever prosecute as felonies, on and on and on. He's now reversed a pair of those policies and said now they will charge robbing a store with a gun, et cetera, as a felony. It seems pretty basic. But I'm wondering if there's fear even among progressives that things have gone too far? Maybe not from a policy standpoint, but from a messaging standpoint.
I think progressives are having a really hard time right now, progressive prosecutors, because they are trying to walk back incarcerations and prosecutions. I think the evidence shows that pays off for public safety. But again, we have to have investments in the socioeconomic indicators that keep people out of crime and out of violent crime. When people have money, when people can pay their bills, when people have access to education and healthcare and decent housing, they don't join gangs, and they don't there isn't the same amount of violence. It's a fact. It's not how I feel.
Yeah, well, no, and you make a good point, especially, you think about Wyoming and some of these other states where things work out better. We got to leave it there. Carly, good to see you. Thank you as always.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was nice to see you. Have a great week. No, we just wish we had time to see them. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Now.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.